This man has killed people with a sword in battle more times than he could count for me. So when I brought him to the most violent sport we have left, two people locked inside a cage, no weapons, no armor, fighting until one of them can't continue, I figured he'd feel right at home. 90 seconds in, he turned to me with a look I couldn't read, and he asked me one question. 3 words. Why they stop? I didn't have an answer ready, and by the end of the night, that one question had completely flipped what I thought this video was about. This is a man who only ever knew one kind of fight, the kind that ends with someone in the dirt. I just showed him a kind he'd never imagined existed. And what he figured out about us by the end of the night is something I haven't been able to stop thinking about. I'll tell you exactly what he said, but you have to see what he saw first. Quick backup. Meet Sir William, a knight from the High Middle Ages. His name matters less than what he was. A knight. Which means from the age of 7, his entire life was built around one single thing: combat. At 7, he was sent away to serve in another lord's household as a page. At 14, he was a squire, carrying a real knight's shield into real battles. By 21, if he survived, he earned the right to fight in steel of his own. He trained every single day for a war that could come at any moment. He fought in his king's battles, and when there was no war, he fought anyway, in tournaments, for honor, for fame, for prize money, in front of roaring crowds. Hold on to that last part. It's going to matter more than anything else in this video. His world had basically one rule about violence. You fought to win, and winning usually meant the other man didn't walk away. So I wanted to know, what would a man like that make of the way we fight now? So I used the device I created to make a temporal bridge, grabbed him from 200 AD, and I took him to a UFC event. And the very first thing that broke his brain wasn't the violence at all. It was that they were doing it on purpose, with nothing. No swords, no shields, no armor, no horses. 2 men, half naked, stepping into a cage to hit each other with their bare hands, by choice, in front of 20,000 cheering people. In his world, fighting a man unarmored, hand to hand, was one of 2 things. Either you were a peasant in a tavern brawl, which was beneath a knight entirely, or you'd lost your weapon on a battlefield and you were about to die. This was neither. This was the main event. He watched the first exchange completely baffled. To him it looked like chaos, a brawl with no skill in it. And then one fighter shot in, dragged the other man to the ground, and locked up his arm. And Sir William went completely silent. Because that, the grappling, the leverage, the joint locks, that he recognized. Knights wrestled. When 2 armored men closed the distance and the swords became useless, it turned into exactly this: leverage, control, finding the angle to break a joint. What looked like a mindless brawl 3 seconds ago had just revealed itself as a deep, technical discipline. He leaned forward. He stopped seeing a brawl. He started watching like a professional. And the way he was watching changed completely, because he just realized this wasn't the thing he thought it was at all, which is the exact moment the round ended, and he saw something that stopped him cold. A bell rang, and the 2 men who were 1 second ago trying to dismantle each other stopped, walked to opposite corners, sat down. People rushed in to tend to them, and I watched something click behind his eyes. He pointed at the cage, then at the crowd. Then he said a word in his own language I didn't catch at first. He was saying, tournament. Here's the thing most people don't know about knights. They didn't only fight in wars. They fought in tournaments, huge, organized, wildly popular events where knights competed for prize money and fame in front of enormous crowds. Some knights made entire fortunes on the tournament circuit. It was the closest thing the medieval world had to professional sport. So he wasn't looking at something alien anymore. He was looking at his world's biggest spectacle, rebuilt 800 years later with a different set of rules. He understood the crowd. He understood the fame. He understood two trained fighters testing each other for a prize. Now he was comfortable. Now he got it. Except one detail kept bothering him. He kept staring at the referee, and every single time that official moved, Sir William's face tightened a little more. Something about that man in the cage was deeply wrong to him, and it took me 3 fights to finally understand what it was. It was the rules. He started noticing all of them at once, and he could not believe how many there were. A referee standing right there, with the power to stop the fight. Padded gloves. A doctor at the edge of the cage. Weight classes, so the 2 fighters are evenly matched. Rounds, with rest in between. And a whole list of things you're simply not allowed to do. To a medieval knight, this was staggering. His combat had one rule: survive. There was no referee on a battlefield. Nobody stopped a fight to check if you were okay. Nobody was making sure it was fair. And here we were, wrapping the most violent thing 2 humans can legally do to each other in more protection, more oversight, and more care than his actual wars ever had. He found it almost funny at first. All this padding, all these officials. He gestured at the cage like, "You call this dangerous?" And then it happened. A fighter went down, out cold or close to it, completely defenseless. In his world, in that exact moment, you finish it. That is the entire point of a fight. That's how every single one he'd ever known had ended. But the referee threw himself across the downed fighter and waved his arms. "Stop! It's over! Protect him!" And Sir William shot to his feet. That's the moment from the start of this video. That's when he turned to me and asked it. Why they stop? I'll tell you how I answered, and what he said back, in just a minute. But first you have to understand why that question was almost impossible for him to even ask. Because in his entire life, the goal of combat was always the same: end the other man. You fought for your lord, for your king, for God, for land, for survival. The violence had a purpose, and the purpose was usually a body in the mud. So watching a fight get stopped, on purpose, at the exact instant you'd win it, to him, that didn't look like mercy. At first, it looked like weakness. Like we'd invented a version of fighting for people too soft to finish it. So I tried to explain. I said, they're not fighting to kill each other. They're fighting to find out who's better. And the second that's clear, there's no reason for anybody to die. He went quiet. He looked back at the cage, where the man who'd just lost was being helped up, conscious, bruised, alive. And I watched him work through something heavy. Because he'd spent his whole life being told his fighting was noble, for God, for honor, for the Lord. But the men beside him still bled out in the dirt all the same. The purpose never brought a single one of them back. And here were 2 men who'd just thrown everything they had at each other, and both of them were going to go home. Both would fight again. Both would live. He turned that over for a long, long time. And the thing he said next is the entire reason I made this video. The final fight ended. One man won. The other lost. Badly. And in his world, that's where the story stops. Winner and loser. Strong and weak. But that's not what happened. The two fighters, who 30 seconds earlier were trying to knock each other unconscious, pulled each other into an embrace, foreheads together, saying something only they could hear. Real respect, the kind you cannot fake. And that, out of everything he saw all night, that's the one thing Sir William understood completely. Because that he knew. The respect between two people who have tested each other to the absolute limit and come out the other side. He'd felt that. With men he'd fought beside. Sometimes even with men he'd fought against. He turned to me, and he finally answered his own question. Why did they stop? And he said it slowly, making sure I understood every word. The man across from you is worth more alive. We didn't make fighting safe because we got soft. We made it safe because somewhere in 800 years, we decided the person trying to beat us is still a person worth keeping. We kept the contest. We kept the testing. We kept the respect. We just took out the dying. And a man who had only ever known fighting that ended in death looked at that and decided it might be the most civilized thing he had ever seen. It was time to send him back. Back to a world where a fight has no referee, where nobody throws their body over you to make it stop, where the man across from you isn't someone you'll embrace afterward. He's someone you'll bury, or who'll bury you. He's seen a kind of combat his century could never have dreamed of, not because it's more brutal, because it's more merciful. And he's carrying back one idea that simply did not exist in his world, that you can test a man completely, take everything he's got, and still want him to walk away alive. A knight who killed for a living looked at the most violent sport we have left and saw the mercy in it before most of us ever do. We didn't make our fighting more dangerous than his. We made it more human. I brought a knight to a cage fight, expecting him to feel at home in the violence. Instead, he found the one thing his entire world never had room for. So here's what I'll leave you with. When's the last time you beat someone at anything and genuinely hoped they'd be okay? He never once got to feel that. We get to all the time. Maybe we should use it more. If this one got you, smash that like button. Gently. The algorithm doesn't have a referee to stop me. Subscribe, and we will see who I kidnap next.